China is building the world's largest dam in Tibet, in the upper stream of the Brahmaputra.
The dam is expected to cost $137 billion US.
Have you ever wondered what happens when a country takes control of one of the world's most important rivers? China is about to do just that with the construction of the Yalong Dam, a project so massive it could reshape the future of energy, geopolitics, and even the environment. This isn't just any dam. It will be the largest hydroelectric project the world has ever seen, generating 3 times the power of the legendary Three Gorges Dam. But here's the catch. With such immense power comes a mountain of controversy. How will it impact millions of people in neighboring countries? What about the environment and the delicate ecosystems of Tibet? The world's most ambitious dam project. China has just approved the construction of what will become the world's largest hydroelectric project, and this colossal venture is sure to leave you in awe. Deep in Tibet's Yalong Canyon, one of the most dramatic landscapes on the planet, construction is set to begin on a dam that will generate 3 times more electricity than the already legendary Three Gorges Dam. That's right, we're talking about a project that will generate a staggering 60 gigawatts of electricity annually, an astronomical number that eclipses anything we've ever seen before. This ambitious project will cost over 1 trillion yuan, equivalent to $137 billion, a sum larger than the GDP of many countries. But what does this mean for the future of Asia and the world's energy landscape? And at what cost will this immense power come? Let's dive deeper into this breathtaking project. The first question is, what exactly does this dam represent for China and the world? The site of this massive hydroelectric project, the Yalong Canyon, is more than just a geographical location. It's a statement of engineering ingenuity. Situated in Tibet, the Yalong Gorge is the world's deepest canyon, with an average depth of 2,268 meters, more than twice the depth of the Grand Canyon. The river flowing through this canyon, the Yalong Tsangpo, is an essential water source for millions downstream, making the project not only an engineering marvel, but also a geopolitical tool. The location itself is crucial. The steep gradients of the river make it ideal for harnessing the immense power of the water, and at this scale, China is stepping into an arena previously reserved for science fiction. The idea of generating 3 times the power of the Three Gorges Dam was once unimaginable, but this dam promises to rewrite the future of hydroelectric energy. But this is not just about generating electricity, it's about reshaping the future of energy production in Asia. The dam will provide a renewable source of power, helping China meet its ambitious carbon neutrality goals for 2060. However, what are the hidden consequences of this endeavor? How will this mega project affect Tibet's environment and the millions of people who depend on the river for their daily lives? And what does this mean for the future of India and Bangladesh, whose water supplies are at risk? One of the most remarkable aspects of this dam is the scale at which it will operate. The sheer size of the project, both in terms of its physical presence and its output, will place it at the heart of China's strategy to transition to renewable energy. The idea of building a dam that can generate enough power to rival the entire energy grid of some nations is groundbreaking. However, with great power comes great responsibility. What happens when a single project holds the potential to control so much of a region's energy and water supply? The potential risks associated with such a monumental dam are hard to ignore. Environmental groups have already raised alarms about the impact on Tibet's delicate ecosystem. The region's biodiversity is already under threat, and submerging vast areas of land for the dam could push some species to the brink of extinction. Additionally, the building of such a large dam in an earthquake-prone region raises serious concerns about the long-term stability of the area. Will China be able to balance these risks with the rewards, or will the push for progress come at the expense of the environment? Could this be the future of energy production, or is it a step too far? The engineering feat of the century. Building a dam in the world's deepest canyon is not for the faint of heart. The Yalong Canyon, with its towering cliffs and treacherous terrain, presents some of the most difficult engineering challenges humanity has ever faced. Construction teams will have to contend with high altitudes, extreme weather, and the region's seismic activity. But that's just the beginning. To build this dam, workers will need to drill 6 tunnels, each over 12 kilometers long, through solid mountain rock. And here's the kicker. These tunnels will need to redirect half of the river's flow, a task that sounds impossible. The engineering marvels required to make this happen are beyond anything we've seen before. But why is this dam located in such a challenging area? The Yalong Dam River flows through some of the most dangerous terrain on the planet, cutting its way through the Himalayas and Tibet. Yet, these very challenges present unique opportunities for harnessing hydropower. The steep gradients of the river offer the perfect natural setup for a hydroelectric powerhouse, and this is why China is willing to push the boundaries of engineering to build it. The site is more than just an environmental and logistical challenge. It's a rare, almost one-of-a-kind opportunity that comes around once in a lifetime. As construction teams prepare to tackle this monumental task, they are developing new techniques and technologies that will forever change how we approach mega infrastructure projects. The complexities involved are mind-boggling. Working in such an isolated, high-altitude environment means that every aspect of the construction process must be carefully considered. From high-quality mountain roads to seismic monitoring systems, every detail matters. And with an estimated cost of over $137 billion, the stakes couldn't be higher. This dam will not only reshape Tibet's landscape, but could revolutionize the way we think about energy production on a global scale. As the dam takes shape, new technologies are being developed that will make this project a model for future infrastructure. The construction methods being implemented here are pushing the boundaries of what's possible. For example, the high-tech water quality control measures that are being put in place could set new standards for environmental protection in large-scale infrastructure projects. The project is not just about producing electricity, it's about creating a sustainable future for energy and proving that even the most extreme environments can be conquered. But is it all worth it? As impressive as this dam is, it will come with a price. The dam will displace millions of people, disrupt local ecosystems, and alter the very river dynamics that have shaped this region for centuries. The social and environmental costs are steep, and they may outweigh the benefits. Can China strike the balance between development and sustainability, or will the scale of this project prove to be too much for the fragile Tibetan plateau? What do you think? Should China be pushing forward with this project, or are the environmental and social costs too great? Geopolitical tensions and the water crisis. As China moves forward with the construction of the Yalong Dam, the geopolitical consequences are becoming increasingly apparent. This project doesn't just impact Tibet, it has ripple effects that extend far beyond China's borders, especially for neighboring countries like India and Bangladesh. The Yalong River, which will feed the dam, eventually becomes the Brahmaputra River, a vital lifeline for millions of people downstream. The question now is, how will China's control over the river's water supply affect its neighboring nations? And what does this mean for the future of international water security? For India, the potential control over the Brahmaputra's water is a source of growing concern. The river is a critical resource for India's northeastern states, providing water for agriculture, drinking, and flood management. Any reduction in water flow or the sudden release of water from the dam could devastate communities that rely on the Brahmaputra. With tensions already high between India and China over border disputes, the idea of one country having so much power over a shared water source is unsettling. Can China be trusted to manage the flow of water equitably, or will it use its control as leverage in future negotiations? This situation has the potential to spark conflicts over water access that could destabilize the region. Bangladesh, downstream from India, also has a vested interest in this dam project. The Brahmaputra is not only a lifeline for India, but also for Bangladesh, where it plays a crucial role in agriculture and flood management. A reduction in water flow or unregulated changes in water levels could worsen flooding, damage crops, and put millions of lives at risk. Bangladesh has already voiced its concerns, and with the growing pressure from China's infrastructure projects, this issue is poised to become a flashpoint for regional tensions. Could the dam, designed to power China's energy future, inadvertently fuel a new conflict in South Asia? Moreover, the dam adds an extra layer of complexity to the already fragile relationship between China and its neighbors. The power to control the water of one of the largest rivers in Asia gives China an unprecedented level of influence over its neighbors. In a world where water scarcity is becoming an increasingly urgent issue, this project is being seen as a strategic move to secure China's control over a resource that is vital for millions of people. The political and military ramifications of this project cannot be overstated, as it could potentially alter the balance of power in the region for generations to come. At the same time, China's growing influence over water resources could have far-reaching consequences for global diplomacy. If China gains control over more transboundary rivers, it could set a dangerous precedent for how nations manage shared water supplies. Water is quickly becoming one of the most valuable commodities in a world facing climate change and dwindling natural resources. The stakes are high, and the Yalong Dam may be the beginning of a much larger conversation about the role of water in geopolitics. How will the international community respond to China's growing influence over these vital resources? What do you think the impact of this dam will be on international relations? Is China's control over water something to be feared or welcomed? Displacement and the loss of Tibetan heritage. As China's ambitious hydroelectric project begins to take shape, the human cost is becoming increasingly apparent. The construction of the Yalong Dam is set to displace up to 1.2 million people, many of whom live in remote Tibetan communities that have existed for centuries. These communities are more than just settlements. They are integral parts of the Tibetan cultural landscape, each one steeped in history and tradition. The dam's construction will submerge vast areas of land, including sacred Tibetan monasteries and ancient villages that hold deep cultural significance for the people who live there. Imagine living in a region where your ancestors have thrived for centuries, where every temple and every stone tells the story of your people's history. Now, picture all of that being erased, drowned beneath the waters of a massive reservoir. This is the reality facing millions of Tibetans as the Yalong Dam begins to reshape their land. The loss of their homes is not just a personal tragedy, it is the destruction of a way of life, a culture, and a deep spiritual connection to the land. How can the government justify such a massive disruption to communities that have been there for generations? Tibetan monasteries, which are central to the spiritual and cultural identity of the Tibetan people, face a particular threat. Many of these monasteries are ancient, with histories stretching back over 1,000 years. They are not just religious sites, they are repositories of knowledge, art, and tradition. As the water level rises, these monasteries and their priceless artifacts will be lost forever, along with the communities that rely on them for spiritual and cultural guidance. How do we measure the value of a culture that has stood the test of time, and how can we reconcile that loss with the promise of economic progress? This displacement has sparked protests from local Tibetans, although such protests are rare and often met with swift and harsh crackdowns. The Chinese government has attempted to address these concerns by offering compensation and relocation plans, but many Tibetans feel that no amount of compensation can replace what they stand to lose. For them, it's not just about material wealth, it's about losing their homes, their sacred sites, and their way of life. How much is the price of progress worth when it comes at the expense of culture and heritage? And while the Chinese government continues to push forward with the project, it's clear that the social costs of the dam are far-reaching. Entire communities will have to start over in new, unfamiliar lands, leaving behind their histories and traditions. In many cases, this will not be a simple move from one village to another. It will be a complete uprooting of lives that have been intertwined with the land for centuries. Is it possible to put a price on such a deep, irreplaceable connection to the earth? Or will the promise of energy and economic growth overshadow the human toll? The story of Tibet's displacement is not just about one dam. It's part of a larger narrative of how development projects across the world often come at the cost of the environment and the people who depend on it. As we look at the future of the Yalong Dam, we must ask ourselves, can we build a better future without sacrificing those who are already living on the land? Can we find a way to balance progress with preservation? Or are we doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past? Can progress truly justify such sacrifices? Or should we be doing more to protect indigenous cultures and natural heritage? Environmental concerns and ecological costs. As China's Yalong Dam project moves forward, the environmental repercussions are becoming more pronounced. Tibet's high-altitude plateau is one of the most delicate ecosystems on Earth, teeming with unique species that thrive in its harsh, remote conditions. Building a dam of this magnitude in such a fragile environment could disrupt ecosystems that have taken centuries to develop. But what exactly will the environmental fallout be? And can we truly understand the long-term effects this project will have on Tibet's fragile ecology? The sheer scale of the Yalong Dam will submerge vast areas of land, potentially altering the local climate and water cycles. The construction of such a massive reservoir could change the region's rainfall patterns, affect wildlife migration, and lead to the flooding of vast tracts of vegetation. Additionally, the decomposition of plant matter submerged in the reservoir will likely lead to the release of methane, a potent greenhouse gas far more harmful than carbon dioxide. This raises an important question. Can a project that aims to provide clean, renewable energy end up contributing to climate change by generating significant emissions? Tibet is also home to a wealth of unique and endemic species, many of which are poorly understood by scientists. This region is a biodiversity hotspot, with high-altitude ecosystems that support life found nowhere else on Earth. The introduction of a mega project like the Yalong Dam could irrevocably alter the delicate balance of these ecosystems. Will the dam's construction lead to the extinction of species that have adapted to these extreme conditions over millennia? And even more troubling, what will become of the Tibetan Plateau's glaciers, which provide fresh water to the entire region, if the dam disrupts local water flows? The surrounding river systems, including the Yalong Dam River, are vital for many communities downstream. The potential diversion and manipulation of these river systems could drastically alter the flow of water through these regions, putting millions of people at risk. Both India and Bangladesh depend on the Brahmaputra River, which begins in Tibet and flows through these countries, for agriculture, drinking water, and managing floods. With the Yalong Dam's ability to control the river's water flow, the repercussions could extend beyond Tibet's borders and into neighboring countries. Could this dam become a source of geopolitical tensions as China gains control over a resource crucial to the survival of millions? While China touts the environmental protection measures and conservation programs it's put in place to mitigate some of the dam's impact, many environmentalists argue that these efforts are not enough. The scale of the project means that large swaths of the Tibetan ecosystem will be irrevocably altered. The flora and fauna that depend on this delicate balance are at risk, and the long-term effects could be disastrous not only for Tibet, but also for countries further downstream. Is it possible for China to truly protect the environment while reaping the benefits of this enormous project? Can the damage be reversed once the dam is complete, or will we be left dealing with the consequences for generations to come? This raises the fundamental question. When it comes to mega projects like the Yalong Dam, how do we weigh the benefits of renewable energy against the catastrophic environmental damage that could follow? Should we be more cautious in how we approach such projects, or do the long-term benefits of clean energy justify the environmental and social costs? The answer to these questions will have wide-reaching implications, not just for Tibet, but for the world at large. The decisions made in the coming years will shape the future of energy, the environment, and international relations. Is the environmental cost worth the renewable energy payoff? Or should we reconsider such large-scale projects to protect our planet's fragile ecosystems? Local resistance and cultural displacement. As the Yalong Dam project continues to progress, it has sparked fierce resistance from local communities who fear the loss of their homes, heritage, and way of life. Tibet, with its rich cultural and spiritual traditions, has long been a place of sacred importance, not only to its residents, but to the Tibetan Buddhist world. The dam's construction threatens to submerge centuries-old monasteries and villages, leaving millions without homes and erasing parts of their cultural identity. How can such a massive project proceed when the cost to the people who have lived there for generations is so high? Tibetans view their land as more than just a place to live. It is an integral part of their spiritual and cultural identity. Monasteries, temples, and ancient shrines are scattered across the Tibetan plateau, many of which are hundreds of years old. These sacred sites are not just buildings, they represent the heart of Tibetan culture, where spiritual practices have been passed down through generations. The destruction of these sites would be a cultural tragedy, and many Tibetans have voiced their opposition to the dam for this reason. Can their voices be heard? Or is their suffering just a collateral damage in the name of progress? The project's environmental impact is one thing, but the human cost cannot be ignored. Up to 1.2 million Tibetans face potential displacement, forced to leave their ancestral homes for resettlement in unfamiliar areas. For many, the idea of leaving the land that has been their home for centuries is inconceivable. The emotional and psychological toll of displacement is often overlooked in large-scale development projects like this one. What does it mean for a community to lose everything it holds dear, to be relocated from sacred land with little compensation or consultation? Can there ever be justice for those whose lives are upended for the sake of development? While the Chinese government has promised compensation and relocation for displaced residents, the reality is far more complex. Critics argue that the compensation plans are inadequate, and many Tibetans feel that their cultural heritage is being sacrificed for the benefit of an energy project that they will not directly benefit from. The sheer scale of the project, combined with the lack of consultation with local communities, has led to protests and public dissent, albeit ones that have been swiftly suppressed by the authorities. But the tension is palpable, and the unrest is growing. How long can China continue to push forward with such projects without addressing the legitimate concerns of the people who are directly impacted? Adding to the complexity is the issue of cultural heritage loss. Tibet's sacred sites, many of which are considered irreplaceable, will be submerged beneath the reservoir created by the dam. This destruction goes far beyond the loss of homes. It is the erasure of a culture and history that spans thousands of years. The Tibetan people's deep connection to the land and their heritage cannot be easily replaced by financial compensation or relocation efforts. How can we reconcile the desire for progress with the irreversible loss of a people's cultural identity? How should the Chinese government address the concerns of Tibetans regarding this project? Can compensation truly make up for the cultural and emotional cost of displacement? Economic gains versus social costs. As the Yalong Dam begins to take shape, many are wondering whether the economic benefits will truly outweigh the social and environmental costs. On paper, this massive project is poised to generate an enormous amount of energy, enough to power millions of homes and industries. The potential for economic growth in Tibet and the surrounding regions is also a factor being touted by proponents. However, the questions remain. Can the economic benefits justify the massive social costs of displacement, environmental damage, and the loss of cultural heritage? China's ambitious energy goals are driving the push for such large-scale projects. The Yalong Dam, with its unprecedented energy output, represents a significant step toward achieving the nation's goal of carbon neutrality by 2060. Hydropower, often touted as a clean and renewable energy source, offers China an opportunity to reduce its dependence on fossil fuels. But the reality of the project's environmental impact is complicated. The dam's potential to disrupt local ecosystems and change water flow across international borders cannot be ignored. Is the trade-off between clean energy and environmental destruction worth it? Beyond environmental considerations, the dam promises significant economic benefits for the local region. Thousands of jobs will be created during construction, and once completed, the dam will provide a stable and renewable source of electricity. But these economic gains come with significant risks. Tibet's remote regions are not fully equipped to handle such a large influx of infrastructure and industry. Will the local population benefit from the economic boom, or will the development be concentrated in urban centers, leaving rural Tibetans with little more than a loss of their land and way of life? What will the long-term economic impact of this massive project be, and how will it be distributed? The international community has reacted with mixed feelings about the Yalong Dam. While some countries applaud China's efforts to move toward renewable energy, others, especially India and Bangladesh, are worried about the geopolitical ramifications. The dam's control over the Brahmaputra River could give China unprecedented leverage over the water supply for millions of people downstream. This could lead to heightened tensions in an already volatile region. Will China's control over such a vital resource become a bargaining chip in future international negotiations? As the dam continues to take shape, China faces growing scrutiny over its approach to mega projects and their long-term social and environmental consequences. The Yalong Dam represents not just an engineering marvel, but a test of China's ability to balance its ambitious development goals with respect for the people and ecosystems it impacts. In the next chapter, we will explore how the international community is reacting to China's growing influence over shared natural resources and what this means for the future of global cooperation on water security. What do you think about the economic implications of the dam? Can the potential energy benefits truly outweigh the social and environmental costs? The global response and future of water security. As China's Yalong Dam continues its ambitious march forward, the international response has been swift and divided. While many applaud China's commitment to renewable energy and its ambitious efforts to combat climate change, others express concern about the environmental, social, and geopolitical implications of such a massive project. The world is watching closely, and the question on everyone's mind is, will China's control over the Yalong Dam River's water supply set a dangerous precedent for future global water security? Countries like India and Bangladesh, both of which depend on the Brahmaputra River for their livelihoods, are increasingly concerned about China's growing influence over this vital water source. With over 1 billion people relying on the river for drinking water, irrigation, and flood management, any manipulation of the river's flow could have disastrous consequences for millions of people downstream. This issue goes beyond water shortages. It could become a matter of regional security and sovereignty. Could China use the dam as a political tool to increase its leverage over its neighbors? The growing concerns from India and Bangladesh suggest that this is a real possibility, and it may have profound implications for the future of South Asia. International organizations are also grappling with how to address the emerging issues around China's control of transboundary water resources. As climate change accelerates, water scarcity is becoming one of the most pressing challenges facing humanity. The Yalong Dam could serve as a model for other countries looking to harness renewable energy from rivers, but it also highlights the dangers of unchecked control over shared resources. How can countries work together to ensure equitable access to water while respecting national sovereignty? Can international agreements be created to manage shared water resources, or will this become a source of global conflict? The geopolitical implications of China's mega projects extend beyond water. They reflect the nation's growing assertiveness on the global stage. As China continues to build dams and infrastructure projects on transboundary rivers, its influence over natural resources will only increase. This will likely lead to more tensions with neighboring countries and raise questions about the role of international diplomacy in managing shared resources. The Yalong Dam is not just about power generation. It is a symbol of China's increasing control over the region's natural resources. What does this mean for the future of international relations and global cooperation on water security? As the world grapples with these issues, one thing is certain: the future of water security will be one of the most important topics of the coming decades. The Yalong Dam represents a powerful example of how water resources, once considered shared assets, are increasingly being seen as tools for geopolitical leverage. As climate change threatens global water supplies, the world must work together to ensure that water is used equitably, sustainably, and with respect for the communities that depend on it. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video if you found it insightful. Stay tuned for more content about global megaprojects, renewable energy, and the future of water security. Your opinions matter. Leave your thoughts in the comments below.